Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to CSRlive Expert Talk. Today, we have with us Mr. Avnish Pandya, the co-founder of BOHECO, Bombay Hemp Company. And thank you so much, Avnish, for joining us here and just having a very fun conversation with us. So, just to start off for our audiences and people who are viewing us, can you just give a little brief introduction about you and the company?
Definitely. Thank you so much, for having me here. It's always a pleasure to share some insight on some of the work that we've been doing. As you mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders at Bombay Hemp Company. I predominantly look at the research aspect within the company. BOHECO is India's first licensed medical cannabis and industrial hemp company. It was responsible for bringing about the right narrative around the use of cannabis as a medicine, as well as specifically looking at patient advocacy from that perspective. The objectives primarily are to be able to not lose out on cannabis the way India lost out on maybe, let's say, the Haldi revolution or the yoga revolution, and make India a relevant player. So while we have this amazing plant that can help people in many ways, our objective has also been able to, of course, work very closely with the regulator to be able to get the right kind of licenses and things like that. So I think, yeah, BOHECO is a regulatory enterprise that is working towards health and wellness with cannabis as its focal point.
Got it. That's great. So I was seeing your vision of the company and the vision you guys have, want to achieve in the upcoming years. So, can you just explain our audiences where do you see BOHECO going in the next 5 or 10 years? What's your end game to reach with the company?
Got it. So I think the larger game for BOHECO is to be able to actually eventually have a pain-free society. Today, we have so many different types of pains, whether they're diagnosed or underdiagnosed or undiagnosed. It is becoming more and more of a cost to the economy as well as cost to the overall healthcare system. A lot of this pain could be symptomatically managed effectively with the use of cannabis. So there are certain areas such as arthritis, menstrual pain, muscle recovery, that as well as chronic pain that BOHECO is focusing on, developing clinical trials, having the right kind of science to back the products, and eventually bringing that product to the consumer. So in the next 5 years, objectively, I think BOHECO should be working with 1 million patients, whereas today, if it's working with 10,000 patients, so it's about growing the size of the patient base, helping more and more people. And I think the true satisfaction is having some life-changing stories. That is actually the true version of things. What we are working towards is knowing that we have actually improved somebody's quality of life. And I think there is no bigger way to influence someone's life than improve its quality.
So basically, that is how you quantify your results. Like if you actually see that you're making a difference out there in the people's life, like basically their health, and if they're actually making them feel better about it, that is how you quantify the results you're getting from the company, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly. I think, Varun, and I would jump into the fact that, that is also exactly how we looked at the vision of the company. And CSR is not very different from us from what we actually do on a day-to-day basis. We genuinely believe that if we can truly impact people's lives, that is a service in itself to the community. And of course, these products are not free. I don't mean that they're just given away to consumers. A lot of these are prescription products. So they are under a guided medication program with a medical practitioner. But that has always been the case. And I think that is why the company has seen 10 years of existence in a field that nobody thought ever could exist in the first place. And that is a testament to its founders, the team, as well as the overall ecosystem, such as the government, the researchers, etc. I think it was about time that India caught on to the cannabis wave along with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And because, we are on CSRlive, so of course, we're going to talk about the CSR and its implications. But before that, I just want to understand this, because what you guys started was something that, people like might knew about it, but not like on a mass scale. Like people have a very
Yeah,
negative perception about, cannabis, especially in India as of now. People think of it as
yeah.
a, like they attach a negative sentiment to it. So how hard was it exactly to create a category where you actually show the positives of it, the positive side of it, and how you show that, what, we are just not doing like anything else. We are properly regulated. We know what we are doing. How tough was it?
So I would say it was definitely challenging in a certain way. We did find that certain sects and certain aspects of our society didn't necessarily conform with our point of view. Secondly, I think the one thing that we clearly understood is that 1% of India actually drives the narrative. The other 99% of India is following a narrative. So we have to just convince the 1% people
Correct.
that this is the right thing for the country. This has the larger implication of having something to do with cannabis as medicine is much bigger. The trickle down effects are serious. And I think that's where we understood that if we are able to, let's say, convince a member of parliament to wear a hemp kurta to one of the sessions,
Correct. Yeah.
that narrative completely changes the conversation on bhang. We're no
Mm.
more talking about somebody who's pulling a cart after consuming bhang, but we're talking about a member of parliament wearing a kurta made out
Correct.
of it.
Correct.
So that was the different levels of perception game that we had to kind of get into. And at the same time, we were also banking on a consumer that was educated in terms of had some international exposure.
Correct.
And this is very funny because bhang and cannabis is a very, very Indian
Yeah.
concept,
Yeah.
but some of our major consumer base is actually the expat community or people who studied abroad and come back
Yeah.
and recommending these products. So that is where we also saw the hypocrisy,
Correct.
overall, that, oh, this is our culture. The world is adopting it now and doing hundreds of things with it, but we are not actually doing much. So I think
Yeah.
instilling that sense of pride in people and saying that we need to be part of this helped us navigate a lot of this. And I'm not saying we're done with it. This is still very, very early days in terms of the perception aspect. But let's be honest, we are working with 30 to 40 years of prohibition.
Correct.
So
And I
it
think,
is,
yeah, absolutely. And what you correctly pointed out is that I want like, it's very funny because like when you talk about bhang, it becomes a very mass product in India. And when you just call
yeah,
it cannabis or cannabis based product, the market automatically becomes very niche for you guys. Like as you or mentioned that, people
yeah,
who have had international exposure, who actually know the right implications of cannabis, they only first, they have to, go ahead with it. And then people might see and get influenced, what, maybe, this is not the
yeah.
thing we have been thinking of. Absolutely. That's great. So now coming on to my next question, Nish, like, so you spoke about CSR, how you said it's not very different of what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis. Uh, what exactly, how do you view CSR in your point of view, from BOHECO's point of view? What exactly do you see the importance of CSR in today's Indian economy or the whole national game?
Yeah, I think from the day we started, even before, there was a thing called ESG, which is like, the environmental, social, and governance aspect of things. BOHECO's vision was always to be able to positively impact every aspect of its ecosystem. Whether we're talking about nature, whether we're talking about science, whether we're talking about law and policy, whether we're talking about consumer and patient groups, or whether we're talking about government officials. So according to a company like BOHECO and according to me, major aspect of CSR is how are you helping a certain target community or you are uplifting a certain target group. Now, in our case, the target groups were the aforementioned that I just spoke about. We had to positively impact each one of those for this overall narrative and conversation to come about. Now that it has reached this level, all the focus is now going towards the farmer as well as the patient. Companies such as ours are the intermediaries to navigate the regulatory as well as the financial burden of running a business and kind of connecting what the farmer grows processing it in a standardized industrial way, which is a consumer-friendly product and ready to be delivered to the consumer. So we see the farmer as well as the patient as our target groups evolving from what stage we have reached currently. And as BOHECO is a fast-growing company, it does not necessarily have all the resources immediately to deploy in the traditional CSR routes, as we would call it. This is the activities that we do are not to turn a profit necessarily immediately. A lot of our research, a lot of our clinical trials, they are going to yield results much later as well. So I think CSR has to be holistic. I think for any company to really make a dent in today's ecosystem, they have to have a full-pronged approach, and its target group, which is getting influence, has to be at the center of the conversation.
Correct. So like basically, because like any company, like, and especially BOHECO, it's a long process. As you said, like the R&D or the research you're putting right now might not give the fruit in the next 1 year or 2 years. So it's a long process. Makes sense. So I just have to address this one thing because a lot of youth also watches and stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your investors. All right. Everybody, like, it was in news that you guys raised money from even like Ratan Tata and like the. How was that? How was that experience for you guys? Like, what exactly did you say that impressed him so much? Like, what was it?
Yeah, so in fact, it was one of my co-founders, Jahan, who met him at, we were all at an entrepreneurship event, and Jahan happened to meet him actually in a bathroom during that time. And at that point of time, he had a brief chat with him where he just asked him if Mr. Tata was ever aware of hemp. And it so happened that Mr. Tata knew what hemp was because the British used a lot of the hemp to build the sails and ropes for its navy. And if the British didn't have hemp, the British wouldn't have a great navy, which would mean that they wouldn't actually be able to conquer the world the way they did. So he had a certain educated perspective on it, and that one conversation led on to multiple follow-ups. We had a meeting with him. And honestly, like it was a great experience. Still, we're lucky enough to get time with him on a regular basis. But it was very simple with him. Like, he was very clear about what the potential of this thing is, how it can be done. There was very little jargon. There was very little big talk of that sort. So he's actually a very humble and a uncommon man.
Absolutely. I get your point. Yes, for sure. And I think
even so we were expecting like, fanfare and stuff like that from him, but it's not like that. He's very, very to the point, and he's very relaxed, which allows him to think very clearly as well. So I think that's what was our biggest learning for us, like having that clarity in thought.
Absolutely. I think it must be like a school only talking to him. You must be like everybody can learn so much from Mr. Ratan Tata. That's not a question also. But so, Avnish, do you guys like BOHECO in general? Do you guys have any plans for CSR projects in the future? Do you guys like have you thought like is there something in the pipeline? See, we know that you guys work closely with the agriculture sector. You guys you are connected with them. But is there any projects that you guys have in the pipeline? Specific projects?
Yes, so there are a couple of projects that are in the pipeline. One of them, so BOHECO also has a not-for-profit Section 8 company, which is called Atulya Krishi Foundation. In that foundation, we do a lot of work, which is primarily related to farmer level education about the crop.
All right.
How to use this crop, how to grow it, what to do, at what level to harvest the crop, etc. The science and the technology aspect there. Some of the studies, clinical studies, are also funded by this not-for-profit company that BOHECO has. So as of now, a lot of it and going into the future is going to be on R&D and prototyping. Let's say now we're working with a small cluster of farmers in Uttarakhand to grow the selected varieties of hemp at scale, so that we can exactly know, okay, what are the yields we're getting in a scale project. So it has mainly got to do with farmer engagement, prototyping of some of our genetic work, as well as clinical research.
All right. And Avnish, if I'm not wrong, you're based out of Gurgaon, right?
Yes,
You're
I'm based out of Delhi
So
currently.
how
Yes.
exactly did you guys come up with the name of the company? Like
No,
how?
so I was born and brought up and everything in Bombay.
Acha.
It has just been like, I would say like 12 to 14 months since I've been in Delhi.
All right. And
Uh,
how
but
exactly do you come up with Bombay Hemp Company? Like all your co-founders, everybody. Like we just want to know how exactly did Bombay Hemp Company? Like how did the name come up?
it was very simple for us. Bombay is iconic. Bombay is a brand in itself. So where are we from? What do we do? Pretty much should tell you everything, right? So Bombay is where we're from, and hemp is what we do.
Uh,
And where we are from, preceding what we do has its importance because the rest of the world and India takes Bombay seriously. Like if there's and now you see there is a track, right? We have the Bombay Shaving Company, we have the Bombay Sweet Company, we also have the Bombay Shirt Company.
Correct.
So it's a pattern.
Correct. So, Anish, just coming on to this thing. So you said, how were there any challenges you guys faced when collaborating with the government, like with the regulations and all, and when you have to deal with the government in the sector, when you have to go on and like I'm sure there must be government involvement somewhere or the other, and like quite a
Everywhere,
major
everywhere.
aspect. Yeah, quite a major aspect of it. Are there like how exactly? I would like to know both the sides. How exactly was the government helpful in the whole process, and what were the challenges exactly that you faced, like on a general level?
See, the government has always had a very scientific, legal, and clear-cut clinical approach to cannabis. There can be a lot of things that are said in the media about the government's perception, but I'm being objective in terms of my interaction and the kind of work we have been able to do. And to be very clear, the government's conversation is only limited to the industrial and medical use of cannabis.
Correct.
There is no other use beyond that is being spoken about. The second aspect there is the government has its own complicated machinery. Uh, Once you understand how the cogs and the wheels of the bureaucracy work, you yourself can actually understand that this is the level of difficulty which is usually considered in units of patience. The level of difficulty is how patient you can be in terms of communicating the same thing in a different way. It's also very important to understand that the government is not one person or two people. It is a lot of different tentacles of one scorpion, and there are different people who influence different aspects of it. So the government has actually, according to me, has had a very realistic approach to cannabis. We would definitely hope and wish that we could speed up on some of the things, but I think as the industry, we're always going to hope and wish for those things, right?
Absolutely.
So the
Everything has
difficulty
its
is
pros and cons.
everything
Yeah.
everything works, but it works at its own pace.
You just need to be patient when with working with the government, because it is, as you completely rightly said, that it is a very complex machinery when it comes to government, and you have to have the
Yeah.
patience to get your work done. So, Avnish, exactly is your view on the CSR mandate or the CSR law in India as of now, as from coming from a corporate side, like corporate view on the CSR mandate in India, right?
Yeah. I think rather than I have a little different perspective on CSR. I think rather than CSR being considered as a giveaway or a freebie or something that you need to spend a percentage of your profits on, I think somewhere we have to find out a metric how really your business is anyways impacting society in a good way.
Correct.
I am of a belief that if somebody is even buying bananas from a farmer or banana leaves and making something out of it, that is CSR. Because you
Correct.
are helping the community actually do something sustainable. Is CSR an answer to sustainability that it will keep happening? Will the company keep pumping in that money year on year onto the same concept? I think we have to find business solutions. And that's why my focus would be more on environmental, social, and governance based goals,
Correct.
which actually take care of the ecosystem and not necessarily just focus on amount of money spent on profit
Correct.
made. Because today's CSR ecosystem is predominantly that. And how do we scheme that system? Let's say if we were a multi-billion-dollar company making a lot of profit, it is about us scheming that system to provide more of a product to those people at a discounted rate or at whatever, so companies will find ways to always skirt the system if it is regulated in this way. But I think if companies are incentivized to have better environmental, social goals and governance-based goals, then I think we could see impact at a much larger level.
So if I'm not getting wrong, you're saying the implications of CSR should be embedded in the working of any company on the base and fundamental level only. Like it shouldn't be like CSR shouldn't be defined as you have to spend this much of your profits or income on a particular thing. It should be in the operational functional way of the company only.
Exactly, because every company is impacting the country positively, right? Yeah. Every one job that we create in manufacturing creates 4 or 5 other service jobs.
Absolutely, that's one way to look at it for sure. That absolutely is
I
one
think
way to.
It's a question for, of course, economists and a bunch of policymakers to answer. But this is my perspective is that you have to incentivize people to do good. You cannot discredit them for not doing enough. I think that's the psychological difference.
Absolutely, and that's one way to look at it for sure. Because like as you said, like it should be embedded in the company's core values to be doing good for the society in general, rather than not just putting the label of CSR and doing something specifically. It should be the ultimate, functioning of the company only. That absolutely is beautiful. So just before wrapping up for our viewers, Avnish, what exactly do we see from BOHECO's side in the upcoming years, and what would be your, end note for the audiences?
Yeah, hopefully this year we will see more results, positive results for clinical trials coming from our sleep product, coming from a menstrual pain product. Also this year is when we will see some decent sized cannabis cultivation, specifically for medical and industrial use happening. So impacting a lot more farmers there. And of course, growing the overall patient base in the company, so that not only in the company, but overall in the industry also, to have more and more patients have access to this medicine, make it more affordable, make it more accessible. I think now these medicines work, they help people. Now it is about how can we scale this and bring it.
How can you reach to people, basically? How can you make people aware about the benefits of this thing?
Yes.
Actually, I think that would be a challenge in a country like India, where you have to reach to those places where people don't really have that perspective about cannabis as of now, and you have to basically change that for sure. So thank you, Avnish, for joining us here, and I hope we see you soon again, and we definitely will. And thank you so much again for being with us here on CSRlive Expert Talk.
No worries. Thank you, Varun. You have a good day.
Thank you.